Welcome back to the Dota Radio Morning Show, presented by Dota Radio, the internet radio dedicated to Dota 2. Make sure you visit us at dotaradio.com to learn more about our audio-only style of commentary. Remember, you can also tweet at us live during the show at Zyori TV, at the Dota Radio, and at Hippie Casting, as your topics pertain to what we talk about in today's episode. Welcome to episode 7 officially, folks. We're glad to be back bright and early on this Monday morning. This is a simulcast. Don't forget, you can head over to dotaradio.com, check out the Twitch video stream, the audio-only stream hosted by MixLR, as well as the podcast-style archive that we'll have updated right away when this episode is finished. Remember, you can also check us out. Whoops, that's the wrong one. There it is, dotaradio.com/morning show, and you can always write into us as well, morning show at dotaradio.com. We're back with almost the usual suspects. Yet again, Monolith not with us. He is in Korea right now with Team Dignitas. They played in the Nexon Super Match Invitational this morning, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But it is myself and Hippie back once again. Hippie, how are you today, sir?
Doing good, man. This was some pretty great Dota over the past few days that I think will be an absolute blast to talk about. So I'm happy. I'm always happy.
Yeah, I'm always happy as well. It was a good weekend for myself as well. Plenty of good Dota that I enjoyed. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the Na'Vi versus Liquid Best of 5 that played yesterday on the We Play Losers Bracket Finals. Now coming up, it is going to be Na'Vi versus Alliance in the Grand Finals of that tournament. So it's finally coming to an end, and that should give you a little bit of a spoiler if you didn't catch the series yesterday. Who won? Of course, it was Na'Vi 3-1 over Liquid. It was a great series. I would recommend checking it out. Our talking points today are basically going to be breaking down that series game by game. There's a lot of interesting kind of takeaways we can pull from it, and I think that the series in general gives us a good kind of overview of the changes that 6.79 have brought upon us, because it's such a big patch. It's so hard to swallow. Things are finally starting to settle down a little bit. We're seeing some new trends, and we're going to identify those via those matches. So also on the docket today, what else do we have here? Hippie, we're going to talk NEL Grand Finals. They finished up last night. We're going to talk TwitchTV a little bit, what they have planned for next generation consoles, what that could mean for PC gaming, and like I said, we're going to move into Na'Vi versus Liquid. To wrap it up today, we are going to talk about Brewmaster. He was a highlight of that Best of 5 series, so Hippie's going to do us a solid and tell us all about the Mighty Panda and why he is so scary in this patch. So opening thoughts here, I've got a couple weird points I just want to open with. You know, Mondays are always an interesting time for me because on the weekends, when Hippie and myself are not casting right now, I don't really talk to people that much. I don't do a lot of talking. I do a lot of thinking. I take a lot of notes. You should see the notes I took for that Best of 5 series. I broke those games down with bullet points. Oh man, the notes are long today, and it's just Hippie and myself, but I have no doubt we'll be able to fill this hour without any problems. Now, I want to ask you something, Chris. Do you have a problem with the frequency at which other casters that control the camera use the tabs, the F5, the F6, the F7, the item tab, as well as the graphs? I use them a lot. I don't know if how many of the VODs you've gone back and watched, but I think you'll notice that I check those things every 5 minutes. I love to see the actual numbers of what's going on and just get an overview of what the items are, because I really struggle to picture the current state of items in my head when they don't open the item charts. And that's my biggest complaint with Beyond the Summit. They never open the graphs. LD never, ever opens the graphs. Maybe once in a game if you're lucky, if they just want to check the numbers when there's nothing else to talk about. Am I off my rocker here? Do you agree with me? What's your ideal frequency for using the stat graphs?
For me, it tends to vary from game to game because what I like to do when I'm casting a game is I tend to open them after major engagements, after major team fights, and if there isn't anything going on, I'll check them every maybe 5 or 6 minutes just to get a good picture of what's going on in the game. I'm usually mostly watching the net worth chart and the last hits, and I try to be very conscious of individual item pickups as they're coming through. But yeah, to an extent, there are some times when I really wish we had the graphs available, and I really wish we could see what was going on, because even if you feel like you get a sense of the game, there's times, when the game is 15-5, but the graphs tell a completely different story than a completely one-sided domination, because somebody has been farming like crazy while all this is going on. Say one team's farming an anti-mage. They may be down 10 kills, but if the anti-mage is farming fast enough, that graph could actually be really, really even.
Yeah, and I agree. I think also it's like you don't need to tunnel vision on the graph, but it's nice to just give you a good overview of how the game is going, because it isn't the most useful data. It isn't net worth. It's just raw gold. So it isn't really that useful. It doesn't take into account buybacks, but it still just paints a nice overview that I appreciate. And I understand why, especially LD. I mean, he's an old school guy. So like back in the day, there were no graphs to rely on. So it's just sort of a habitual thing where he's not used to using the graph. So to him, he doesn't need them. And I totally understand that. But as a viewer, it really helps me, especially the item chart. And in our current meta, we're going to talk Necro Books later, man, and how amazing that item is now. We talked about it last week. We're going to talk about it again today a little bit. And when we have teams where it's just like, yeah, they've got a whole bunch of Necro Books. And in that series, they kept saying over and over, like, all right, Necro Books are on cooldown. I'm like, well, how many Necro Books do they have? Like, I see they have a whole bunch, but I keep losing track because they don't go through the team one at a time. You know, do they have 2, 3, 4? Like, how serious are the Necro Books here? And of course, I had to wait till the end of the game to see the stats chart, and of course, you can figure it out then. But that's my complaint with the tabs. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a noob caster, and it's a crutch that I rely on. But I really like those graphs. So. Anyway, more Dota Radio related news here in our continual long rant of opening thoughts. Last week, in our last episode, we had Mont as our guest on Friday. Great episode. If you didn't see the interview with Mont, I would recommend checking it out. It was really insightful. He was a fabulous person to have on. And there was video action, so the video is actually a little more prevalent for that particular episode. But there were actually more audio downloads than YouTube views by a significant factor last week. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. Chris, we're really making some strides here in our sort of audio-only environment. We are, I think, the only ones doing it. The Chat Wheel, they have their audio-only podcast, but there's really not much audio-only action. So I salute you audio-only listeners, the podcast folks out there. That's awesome. That made me happy this weekend to see those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still think that one Reddit post about the blind Dota fan who likes to listen to Dota Radio, that almost made me cry. It really warmed my heart. I was like, wow. You know, I knew we were doing something that's cool. I knew we were doing something that's fun and different, but that just made me feel like we were actually doing something special. Not to toot our horn a little too much here, but I really felt good about that, man. And I like that it's an audience we are reaching, and it's not like, oh, you know, we have maybe 5 people listening to the audio stream and that's it, and you know, there's never any more than that. Yeah. We actually have a significant audio market, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Pretty awesome. So anyway, I got an email this morning, actually, someone asking about, dude, can you post a schedule of when you're casting? Because I keep missing it. And I'm going to have to send back and say, sorry, Rat Dodo. That's what name he put in there. But we haven't been casting. That's why there's no schedule. It is usually on the website. There's a big button that says schedule, but it's just morning show because, of course, we ran into that issue where we need to work with tournament organizers. So we've been sort of biding our time. The plan is to cast the Natalic Pro League. We have the permission to go ahead with that, and that tournament has been delayed. It was supposed to continue this weekend, and we were planning on covering it, but it's delayed because Fnatic, of course, was in Korea, and they've been traveling. They're finally back, and they're going to reschedule. I think they're in the losers bracket finals or the losers bracket semis or something, but this is the match they're waiting on for the rest of the tournament to move forward. So as that happens, we will cover it, and they should be pretty good matches at that. So keep an eye out for that, of course, on the social media. We'll keep you all updated. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's move into our first bit of news here. We're going to talk Nexon Super Match here to start things off. So the match, the 3 teams this week, I'm already tongue-tied, oh god. Speed Gaming, Dignitas, and then of course MVP Hot 6. That's one of the MVP teams. I actually did not catch either of the matches against the Korean team, but I did see the Dignitas versus Speed, which was incredible. I'm hesitant to spoil it, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here. So this is your chance. Plug your ears. If you haven't watched it yet, you're waiting, because it did just happen a couple hours ago. Dignitas did win over Speed, and they also did beat the Korean team, so that's huge for Dignitas. They're a North American team. That's really awesome. As a sort of slightly biased towards North American type stuff, being from North America myself, that made me quite happy this morning, Hippie. And it was an interesting match as well. Dignitas versus Speed. It was a pretty good one. Night Stalker, Weaver, Veno, Venge, and Mirana for Dignitas, and then Lich, Void, Queen of Pain, Visage, and Nyx. Why did I put Razor in there? That was a different match, so I can't count. And Nyx was the Speed lineup. So it was a pretty interesting game. There were some pretty big Void ults. I always like seeing Void. He's a hero that I really enjoy that we don't see very often.
Yeah, that's something you'll see out of Speed Gaming a lot. They're willing to pick some unusual heroes. They were much more willing to pick, especially carries. Eternal Envy has an odd pool of carries that he plays. He was playing Luna before everyone else was, before she got buffed in the most recent patch. He was always a fan, and he will, they'll try some interesting things. They'll do different things. Owie 2000 is also someone who really likes experimenting.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you have a team right there that is much more likely than some others to come out with some really unorthodox sorts of things. So they are really always a blast to watch.
Yeah.
I do quite enjoy their matches.
I really enjoyed it, and I'll tell you what, man, that hard carry Mirana is the flavor of the week. Everyone's been doing it. It seems almost every game we see Mirana in that number one role, just picking up all the farm, going for that Manta butterfly action. It's pretty scary, and it was interesting to see Weaver as well. Weaver's a hero that's been getting ignored a little bit in this last patch, so it was kind of cool to see Dig run him. I mean, Night Stalker, he's kind of fun as well. He's nice and aggressive, so usually you're going to have an action-packed game. So I was checking it out. Of course, Korea did run their YouTube stream with their solid 2K concurrent viewers or what have you. That's of course the Korean stream, so it's in Korean. So again, I think they have other distribution on other channels actually in Korea. But this time, Toby was casting on the OGN stream, and he was actually holding steady around 25K concurrents. I think he might have peaked up at 26. So that was pretty solid. But I did have a couple of complaints, and Chris and I were talking about it, but before the show started. And it's interesting that this is the same channel they use for League of Legends, and OGN is very established in League of Legends. We looked at those numbers, 40% of the game time over there is League. Very, very popular, so their channel is well established, but the subscription is $8, and their chat was only in subscription mode, and they have the thing where you can't watch in HD, you can only watch on medium quality unless you're a subscriber. So I was sort of put off by that a little bit, where I really wanted to watch this match, but you're stuck watching it on cell phone quality on your TV, and I'm not going to pay $8. I mean, that's really expensive compared to most other channels are $4 or $5. $8 is extreme, but I guess they can get away with it because, as we were talking about, they're pretty established for League of Legends, and it's the same channel. But I'm not a fan of that pay for HD model. NASL tried it, MLG tried it, and I think it's kind of I don't like it.
I don't think it'll ever really grab hold in the West. I agree with you there. I think we're at the point where we're so used to the idea of, we'll take the advertisements but don't charge us for the high quality stream. I mean, like we've said, we've been singing the praises of the recent MLG streams because even if they're running, several ads between games, they're doing them all between games, and the quality of the stream is absolutely incredible. But in Korea, I mean, OGN, they were even around before League of Legends. They were one of the two major StarCraft channels. It was them and I think NBC Game. And so they've been in this business for years and years and years. So it's not really surprising to me. The business model, for one thing, is different because esports is much more established in Korea than pretty much anywhere else in the world. And that with their move to... They're not like MLG in that they created this online thing and immediately said, okay, you have to pay for 1080. They were a TV channel that ran these huge StarCraft tournaments. They ran the OSL, which was their personal star league. And so they, with their name, with everybody being used to going to them for this stuff, and with, I think, people being used to paying, a subscription so they could get it on their television, I just don't think it's particularly alien to them to pay for higher quality video on the stream.
Yeah, no,
it's alien to us.
That's a good point.
That's Korea, a good point. I don't think it is.
I think you're absolutely right about that, where they have a sort of just a different mindset, a different take on the infrastructure, where for us, it's sort of, because they're newcomers to the West almost, for some of us that aren't as familiar with OGN, it sort of feels like a money-grabbing scheme, but really they're super old, super established, one of the longest-standing esports organizations. They've sort of earned that positive reputation to be able to charge that much. But one of the differences where I would say with this particular case, again, it is the same channel, so they can't pick and choose, but with Toby casting on it, it's just regular Dota production. It's not like the Korean production where they have all the awesome panning cameras. They have a little bit of it mixed in, but it's not quite the same. And it was Toby solo casting. And I love Toby, but I don't think Toby solo is nearly as good as Toby paired with, Clairvoyance or someone else, Capitalist or someone like that. I think Toby works a lot better in a duo with a really experienced player. So just all that together, I was just like, ugh, this is just not what I was really looking for when I heard it was Dignitas versus Speed,
Yeah.
But still, at least I was able to watch it. Beats Daily Motion, so I guess I can't be too hard on him. It was still awesome. One of the other interesting things we got to see this morning, and here I'll pull up the screen cap, is we got to see the new Speed Gaming shirts. This is the first time we've seen Speed Gaming since they became a team with their current roster. And of course, there's Eternal Envy, and I think that's Owie 2000 right there, repping the Speed Gaming. Those shirts are a little intense, bright green, fading. They're like, it's a super simplistic logo with this weird, super bright overlay. If I didn't know any better, I'd say I feel like we're getting trolled a little bit. You know, they're a little they're very bright.
First we have the team name that nobody's really satisfied with. Now we have shirts that are kind of, wow, that's a little awkward.
Oh man, it just cracks me up. It just cracks me. I mean, they look okay, but part of it is also there aren't that many sponsor logos either. So it just looks like they look cheap. You know, they look like one of those teams who are like, all right, yeah, let's get some people together, let's get some T-shirts, Speed Gaming, let's make them, you know, and just go to Vistaprint and order 5 shirts and show up at the LAN party. It's it's cute though. I like it. We'll get to ask Charlie about it. Of course, since Charlie isn't here, he'll have been there for this, so we can get his take, and maybe he'll have some pictures for us, and you know, we'll get the real lowdown, the inside information. Should be pretty exciting when Charlie comes back. And one of my other comments about the game, to be a little more technical here, Dignitas won. It was a pretty close series, series of best. It was a pretty close match. And I've noticed Eternal Envy, though, he's one of those players that kind of plays on tilt. If he gets that early momentum, if he has a good early game and sort of has a positive mindset, he's a great player. He plays semi-conservatively at times. You know, he doesn't go crazy with risks. He doesn't tunnel vision. He makes smart movements. But I've noticed he's one of those players that once things start to unravel, it starts to affect him as a player. Like once he gets tilted and he kind of gets out of the zone, his play style changes. He just makes silly mistakes where he just gets picked off solo, and it's like, dude, you were just going in blind to enemy territory. What were you thinking? Just don't do that. The Eternal Envy that's not tilted would not do that. Channel the positive place, man. You know, come on, channel some of that anime. I noticed it in that series where there were a couple times where it looked like Speed was going to be able to take the game, and they just kept getting picked off solo a couple times, and slowly but surely Dignitas capitalized. They took a solid team fight, and that was it. And it's like, well, what happened? You know, Void got picked off like 3 times towards the end of the game, and it's like, dude, you just can't do that. If Void is dead, they can just push and kill your base. The only reason you guys haven't lost yet is because you have the Void ult. That's like almost as good as Earthshaker in terms of anti-push, you know, Tinker style. You put them in the bubble, they can't kill anything. It made me so sad to watch Eternal Envy. I don't want to say he threw that game, but you know, once as a team things start to go poorly, it really seems like he's one of those players that gets affected by tilt.
Yeah, I like Eternal Envy. I think when he's on, he's one of those players that when he's on, he's absolutely brilliant, and I can watch him play, and I can just be, you know, blown away by really how good he is and how good his decision making can be and how quickly he can make the right calls and assess a situation. He's very, very good at that. But when I don't think it's necessarily just when he's losing, but it definitely has an impact on him. I agree with you there. He has some times when his decision making is just really, really questionable, and his item paths will be kind of weird. And it'll really, I think that several times I've seen it cost Speed the game. I remember very distinctly a 6.78 game he played on Luna. Mm-hmm. I think this is one of the matches they needed to qualify for Starladder LAN Finals. They needed to take this match, and they have this huge advantage, and he used it to buy a BKB and a Satanic on his Luna and just dealt no damage. Yeah. And so he was really hard to kill, but he wasn't really a threat. Like once the Eclipse was popped, and you know, at that late game point, people had BKBs. There was a pipe up. People had, you know, ways of avoiding the damage. There was a mech. So the Eclipse wasn't really a threat. His auto attacks didn't deal any damage, and they didn't have another auto attacking carry. And I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, how could you think this was a good idea?
Oh God, you know, when you're older and you're a parent and you can use that tone on your kid, it'll be so masterful that just like, come on, man, what are you doing? That is like just the ultimate, like, I am disappointed in you tone, man. I don't have that tone. That's next level.
I can be pretty disappointed.
Just what are you doing, man? I had so much confidence, and like just sad panda. Oh man, oh God. Yeah, I don't want to pick on EE too much, but it just seemed like, especially with that Void, it's just when you are that one position, you know, you're on the Void, you are the crucial role at the 40-minute mark. It's you, man. You're what the team is counting on. So you got to just be so extra careful. You know, we're looking at you under a microscope at that point. So, all right, let's move forward here. Anyway, you should check out those VODs. They were interesting. It was a great match. I keep saying series. It was a great match between Dignitas and Speed. Let's talk NEL a little bit. Of course, the Grand Finals were last night. A pretty cool tournament. You know, it's just like EEL. I think we all know how it works. It's they're mismatched teams. You know, it's not actual teams playing. It's just individual players. So that can lead to pretty cool games. I'm personally not a huge fan of it. I don't really care as much. Maybe for me, part of it is, though, I'm not as familiar with the North American scene. I mean, we've been casting almost exclusively EU, CIS. So I think I might like EEL a little bit better. You know, seeing Dendy make big plays is a little more exciting because I just don't know as many. I feel like I don't have as much of a fan relationship with a lot of the North American players that are popular in NEL. So I just don't like it as much. But honestly, man, I just wish it was a little more serious. You know, Mott and What Is Hip, you know, our buddy Greg, we're both in. He's in chat right now. Shout out to Greg. They were both casting. So, I wanted to watch it, check it out. I like both those guys. I like their style. I like listening to them. But I swear, man, I wish it was a little more serious. I can't stand that they have the spectators, like, talking the entire time and then interacting with the players. And, like, I wouldn't mind if it was sort of normal, like, little back and forth. But it's, like, really obnoxious, man. Like Grant, like dropping N-bombs, like just making comments about everything, telling people they suck, calling people faggots is like, I don't really get offended per se, and I like, you know, really offensive humor and that kind of stuff, but it's just not what I'm looking for when I'm trying to watch Dota and like take notes for my morning show, you know? Just somebody mute that guy. What's going on there? It really kind of turned me off a little bit. I don't know. What's your take on NEL? Grand aside, you know, what's your take on the whole NEL kind of format, Chris?
Well, I really like the way they basically just took a lot of top players and switched them up on different teams. I think it was a really fun format and a really fun league. And I think that when you have a league that spawns from the NA Dota website, you know, not to talk down about the guys, but it's kind of well known as a haven for the biggest trolls in Dota, especially in North American Dota. So it doesn't really surprise me that not only is it happening, but that the league administrators, who mostly are NA Dota guys, to my understanding, are reasonably accepting of it, and that it doesn't bother them. Yeah. And I think as long as it stays a league that's, you know, this is a league for fans. This is a league for people who hang out on NA Dota. This is a league for people who want to just check out these good players. I don't think it will be a big deal, even if it's not my cup of tea. I wouldn't personally enjoy it. I'm with you. I like, you know, I wouldn't want to read all of Grant's commentary in the middle of matches. But yeah. I think if we ever hit the point where we want this to be like a more professional thing, then there's going to need to be a crackdown on stuff like that. Yeah. I'm not sure that's going to happen, though, because I think NA Dota wants to kind of stay NA Dota. It's their thing. They enjoy it.
I mean, that's cool. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I guess from what you're describing, NEL just isn't for me. It's not what I look for in Dota. You know, I like the more professional thing. Some people like it, you know, and I understand why the players like it. I think the general format is really cool. It's light, it's fun, it's a way for the players to still play, kind of sort of practice, stay sharp, but kind of do whatever they want, make big plays, kind of play more individualistic instead of for the team, all that kind of stuff. So I think you're right. It does, as someone said in chat, if it was serious, it wouldn't be NEL. It would lose something of its defining features. So I get that, and that's cool. But come on, man. I mean, why you gotta say N-bombs? You know, I hate that it's so taboo to even say that word that I don't want to say it right now. You know, it's just like, like, come on, man. Isn't there like a level of filter that maybe Grant, for some reason, he's like just the guy I always see. I think Adam App, the MLG Adam, the guy that's like the face of MLG, I saw him tweeting with Grant. And it's just like, oh, how come every time I see someone cursing and flaming and saying things that I don't approve of, it's always Grant? I've seen it like just so many times since I started casting Dota again. And that whole back and forth just ended with Adam App saying, you know what, I'm just going to block you, man. You're too obnoxious to deal with. And then someone asked him about it, and he just said, I watched Grant scream one time, and it was just him cursing a lot, and then his dad came home, and he had to turn off the stream before his dad found out. I was just like, wow, that sounds like that about sums it up. I don't understand the appeal. I don't understand, like, why you want to be like the Deezer or Combat X of the community that is like your whole thing is just being a douchebag. Like, is that like, that was sort of cool in high school, I guess, but not really. You know, everybody knew that you were going to be the guy that was drunk doing nothing with your life working at Walmart by the time you're 24. Why you got to be like that? Why you got to make everybody else look bad? I'll stop ranting. That's all I'm saying. Again, I don't like to single people out, but it seems to be that he's a repeat offender. You know what I'm saying? I digress.
He's kind of a love him or hate him sort of figure.
That's what I tell people about my hair, so I can empathize a little bit, I guess. You love it or you hate it. It's cool either way. I still love you. So, all right, let's move forward here. Enough ranting. Let's talk Twitch TV a little bit. Let's go on a more serious note here. We've talked Twitch TV a bit in the past, but not in the context of next-gen consoles. Of course, Xbox One and PS4, not really on our radar here at the Dota Morning, the Dota Radio Morning Show. But it was an interesting article that I read on the Red Bull Esports site about the impact that Twitch TV's partnership with these next-gen consoles will increase the streamability of FPS games, and how, right now it's totally a PC-dominated thing in terms of the streamers on Twitch TV. It's possible to stream your Xbox, but it's a real pain in the ass. You have to get an HDMI capture card, and you got to do all this other bullshit. It's way more complicated, and most people that could have a lot of viewers if they streamed don't bother because it's too difficult, and they just play in tournaments, so that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the streaming market and how Twitch, kind of blows up or doesn't accordingly. But that article started with some interesting statistics, and I thought I had it open here, but I guess not. So in the opening article, the article said, appropriately, Twitch has blossomed into a behemoth, sporting over 600,000 unique broadcasters per month. That blew my mind. 600,000. I was just saying to Chris before we started this episode, if you had just asked me that blind, like, hey man, how many unique broadcasters does Twitch have each month? I probably would have said like 50,000. That would have been my guess. 600,000. That's a lot of people run an XSplit. Like, maybe XSplit is a lot more profitable than I've been giving them credit for. I'm sure a lot of them use OBS, but Jesus, dude, that's a lot of potential XSplit subscriptions. Like, that makes me want to make a really good bit of streaming software that's way better than XSplit and a better price point. That's a big market. Whoa. So other stats that came along with that: 45 million unique viewers every month on Twitch. That's cool. And an average of 100 minutes watched by a person per day. That's really incredible. Twitch TV is a little bit more popular than I think we were giving it credit for in the past episodes. I shouldn't lump you into that. You didn't write that content, Chris. I wrote that content. Then I gave them credit for it. But wow, just incredible stats.
Well, I think, some of the people who watch, 20 minutes of some game every day are balanced out by the people like me who, oh crap, tournament is on. Gotta literally spend 12 hours a day on Twitch, for 3 days while this tournament happens. Because, when EVO 2013, I made sure to catch literally the entirety of on at least one stream. I usually had multiple streams running because they had like 4 different streams. I'll have a couple Dota streams up during any given time of the day. So I have to imagine that to an extent there are those kind of fanatics, and I assume we don't make up a huge portion of the population, but we're gonna swing that upwards. But still, it's quite impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, those are like you. I agree with you, man. I would never have been able to say, these are the numbers for Twitch. I would have lowballed that like crazy. Yeah. And I mean, especially the minutes watched per day. I would have lowballed that one. You ask me, what's the average time someone spends watching Twitch TV per day? I'd say 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, if a lot, I think a lot of that might come. A crap load of their traffic is League of Legends, and I mean, I guess if you want to watch an entire League of Legends game, that's 30 to 45 minutes right there.
Yeah.
So even if you're just watching one game, if you start to watch 2 games, you're getting up into that hour and a half territory.
Yeah. There is a website that tracks some Twitch stats about like which games are the most watched, but I don't know what the website is on the top of my head. I've seen it before, but I'm struggling. It just occurred to me. I should have put that in to begin with. But yeah, pretty interesting. And I'm going to be fascinated to see how this sort of compatibility with consoles will help things, because there's a convenience factor there. You're going to have your Xbox One, you buy it, you plug it in. There will be an app pre-installed for Twitch TV. And you just go to it, you type in your credentials, and you can stream right there from your Xbox. You don't have to configure anything. You don't have to play with the camera. You don't have to play with resolutions. Everything's already set up for you to stream in HD, and you just click go. That's pretty wild. I mean, nothing like that exists for the PC. Even setting up OBS for the first time is challenging. I mean, it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it, but the first time, it's a lot of information to swallow. There's nothing quite that simple as just turn it on and go for streaming yet in the PC world. So maybe this will be the opportunity for consoles to kind of hop ahead on that front, because so far it has been a totally PC-driven thing. Who knows? Who knows? It will be interesting.
For that kind of functionality, I really hope they get it right, because every time I've seen a program that's just like, here, we'll stream you straight to Twitch, as opposed to using an intermediary like XSplit or OBS. Like when I've had games that have Twitch streaming built in, it's always been really bad quality, not being able to actually configure the settings, because they want to make it very, very user-friendly, so they don't give you a whole lot of configurability. I mean, like you said, it can be kind of a bitch to set up something like XSplit or OBS to get all your bit rates right, to get everything, set up so not only are you not having any macro blocking going on, but your audio quality is good, you're not messing with your bandwidth, you're not overtaxing your CPU, you're not getting any sort of lag, especially if you're streaming at multiple qualities. And in, a sort of dumbed down, here you go, click this to stream to Twitch thing, it's not going to be like that. You're not going to have that kind of intermediary. I hope that when they are building this streaming architecture for the new consoles, that they really take that into account, that they really try to make some really, really good, easy to use architecture. But I don't have a lot of confidence in it based on my experiences in the past. And I think that any serious tournament that's using consoles, I think fighting game tournaments will still be using PCs. I mean, they're universally run on PCs. No one's trying to do. Obviously, you can't stream straight from the console, but I don't think they'll want to. I think they'll want to have that additional control. They'll want to have that setup where they can actually have that intermediary. They can have much more direct control, and without having to get in the way of the players at the tournament when they're trying to adjust things. If you have to adjust something on the console, you're delaying the tournament. If you have to adjust something on the PC, they're still playing the whole time.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect. I mean, they haven't released a lot of details how it's going to work, so that's part of the reason why this article is interesting, because it's been announced that Twitch is partnering, but we don't know to what capacity in any real specific measure. So all those legitimate concerns that hopefully Twitch will deal with. The only thing that gives me a little bit of confidence is that these next-gen consoles are pretty impressive. I mean, they're like 6 gigs of RAM. They're all the quad cores, or they 6 core. I mean, they're pretty powerful processing units. So they have more than they need to be able to stream in 720p. Another constraint, of course, is going to be upload. The average person is not going to have enough upload to stream 720p or what have you. But I have a little bit of confidence in the Twitch engineering department. I think they've had the opportunity to hire a lot of high-quality talent over the last few years as they've gotten really popular. So I think if any company can pull it off that's in a position to do this, Twitch is the one. I think they have the manpower, they have the human capital, and there's a chance they can do it, but we'll see. I honestly don't really care either way, though, because I'm probably not going to buy any of the next-gen consoles. There are so many other things I would rather spend $500 on, or $400, however much they are.
Yeah, I won't touch one of those until all the games are out. All the games are cheap, and they're like $200.
Yeah,
I only got a PlayStation 3 like a year ago to play all the exclusives I've missed over the past 6 years, like Metal Gear. I love those games, but I'm not paying $500 for a system for them.
I don't have Blu-rays. I don't want to have Blu-rays. It's just not on my radar. Whatever. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The one last piece, or two last pieces here we're going to talk about before we break part 1 and move into part 2, where we look at Na'Vi versus Liquid, the best of 5 from WePlay yesterday. Join Dota, recruiting some new folks, and I guess I didn't save my overlay for this here, but here's the website where they posted, and I use hiring loosely because they are hiring volunteers. I believe none of these are paid positions, so I sort of wanted to mention this as it is a good opportunity for those of you out there that want to get your foot in the door in esports. It is something that I get asked on occasion, how can I contribute? How can I get my foot in the door? This is it, and don't be too afraid that it's a volunteer position. You got to put in the free hours. I'm sure Chris can attest, as can myself, that it takes a lot of free hours, a lot of volunteer time, whether it's on someone else's accord or your own accord, where you just have to work at it. You just have to get your name out there, show people that you can work hard, you can be a valuable member of a team. So this is a great opportunity to network with really high-powered people in the Dota community. But I just think that the one line that just still cracks me up, Dota 2 is getting more professional, the amount of money flowing around is increasing, but we still can't afford to pay people, so we need volunteers. It's just like, I would have chosen slightly different language for that, is all I'm saying. I would have said something just like, Dota's growing really quickly, and our site really values volunteers. We could be a good reference for your resume. Just don't even mention the money, Why you have to bring that up if you're just going to follow with, but we can't pay you. Maybe they should hire me for PR. That's what I'm really trying to get at here, I think.
Trying to get some coverage in case you don't get that MLG position. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah,
Join Dota PR.
Pretty much. That's my ace in the hole here. PR backup with Join Dota. Shit. If I don't get the job, then I'll have some free time to volunteer that way. So we'll see how it goes. And one of the last things we wanted to mention here. This was sort of our audible at the line of scrimmage. You guys got a little piece of at least my end of it when we were starting. Solo dropped by VP because Nexon has an absolute zero tolerance for cheating, max fixing, gambling, that kind of stuff. Chris, you had the deets on this more than I did.
Well, I'm going from translations that people have posted on Reddit, so I don't want anyone to take this as gospel, because the only news I've seen has been in Russian on VP's website. To my understanding, when VP was prepping for Nexon, the Korean sponsors said, hey, we don't do match fixing here. There was a big match fixing scandal in StarCraft a while back, headed up by a player named Savior, who got, basically completely blown out of the scene. I mean, he was never allowed to play again and he was a pretty beloved player. He was very, very good, but it's something that was a serious issue.
Still is.
And Korea, I think they're doing the right thing by saying, no, we can't have somebody who is willing to throw a professional match should not be allowed to play. And I was actually really surprised when Solo's bans got lifted and he started playing again, and I never agreed with that decision. But it appears that, to my understanding, and again, this is my understanding based on the translations I've read, I could be incorrect. I hope I'm not giving you bad information, but I want to get it out there. Basically, this created sort of a chain reaction. Other groups said, well, they're right. They took a stand. We're not gonna let him play either, and now he's gone. I do know, the one thing I know for sure is he is off the roster, and they are trying out new players.
Yeah, so it is true, though. I can absolutely vouch from my time in StarCraft that the Koreans are very, very serious about cheating and match fixing. I mean, literally a zero tolerance policy for any kind of... It's all about respect with them. Anything disrespectful. I remember very keenly when Naniwa had to play a relegation match he didn't want to play, and the match didn't matter. It was like, whatever, a best of 5. He won 3-1, and then they wanted them to play another match just for good measure or something like that. And his strategy was suicide all of his workers from the get-go and just sit there and not make anything. And he got banned from GSL for doing that, for being a crybaby. So they're very serious about anything disrespectful to their league, and of course cheating is like the ultimate form of disrespect, right? So I kind of agree with you. I'm not a big fan of zero tolerance policies in most things. I'm not a black and white kind of guy. I love philosophy, but this is one thing where I'm pretty much like, honestly, man, I've got no sympathy for you being permabanned for match fixing. That match fixing is like next level, like orchestrated of just, I don't care, no morals, just we're going to work as hard as we can to game the system for our own personal gain. And that's like the definition of fucked,
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, all right, Chris, I think it's time to take our break, and then we're going to move. We're going to take a very short break today, guys, just because it's just the two of us here. We have no guests coming on. We are going to have an open Q&A, though. We are going to talk about Na'Vi versus Liquid BO5 coming up next here on the Dota Radio Morning Show, Episode 7. Thank you so much for joining us. And there's going to be open Q&A after we talk about that, and then Brewmaster. So get your questions ready. Anything you want to ask, Dota-related, Zyori-related, Hippie-related, anything you want. We'll take it in Twitch chat, so just be ready. Coming up in about 25 minutes, Dota Radio Morning Show. Going to be returning.